Hey juniors, today we're going to talk about the aftermath of the French and Indian War. So in the top right hand corner of your notes page, go ahead and write today's date, which is 8/1/2014. Below it you can write the objective, which is the aftermath of the French and Indian War. As always, feel free to pause this video to get the notes that you need. Our essential question for the day is, what was the aftermath of the French and Indian War? The essential question does need to be written down in your notes page, so feel free to pause the video and get this written down. We left off yesterday with the proclamation of 1763, so let's go ahead and review it. It prevented the colonists from moving past the Appalachian Mountains. So let's look at the map. The colonies are right here on the East Coast. The red line shows us the Appalachian Mountains. On this side of the Appalachian Mountains, there are a lot of Native Americans and a lot of new land to be settled. However, the British government was concerned that the colonists moving into Native American territory would cause another war. So the Proclamation of 1763 was designed to keep the colonists and the Native Americans separate. So truly, the Appalachian Mountains are serving as a boundary for the colonists. This bullet point does need to be written down in your notes page. As you can see, it's bolded and underlined. So let's talk about after the French and Indian War. As we just said, they enacted the Proclamation of 1763, but there's more to that. Wars are expensive, and 7 years is a long time to pay for the war. At the conclusion of the French and Indian War, Britain was in massive debt. As I just said, 7 years is a long time to pay for a war. To help pay their debt, England decided to raise taxes on the colonies. It was a very simple, easy way to get the colonies to pay their fair share since they engaged in the war themselves. So this is the most important point, that after the French and Indian War, Britain was in massive debt. These last two bullet points do need to be written down in your notes page. The first thing that Britain decided to tax was sugar. So they enacted what was known as the Sugar Act, and it taxed sugar and any product that had sugar in it. Since the colonists were not used to these taxes, they were unhappy about them. Think about yourself. How would you feel if you all of a sudden had to start paying money for reasons that you did not agree with? You probably wouldn't be very happy either, and neither were the colonists. But the Sugar Act was one of the first taxes that the British government enacted on the colonies. Next came the Quartering Act, and the Quartering Act forced colonists to house British soldiers in their homes and feed them. At the conclusion of the French and Indian War, there are a lot of British soldiers that are still in North America, and this was Britain's way of making sure they were taken care of. However, this was allegedly an unofficial tax. Think about it. How much extra money does it take to have a house guest? You have to feed them, you have to clothe them, you have to provide them with linens, you have to wash those linens. The costs add up. So this definitely was an unofficial tax. Make sure you have this first bullet point written down in your notes page. As you can probably imagine, the colonists became furious with England after their taxes are raised, since they did not have a say in it. The big slogan for this time became "No taxation without representation." The colonists were unhappy that they are not being represented in the British Parliament, and such have no control over what goes on with their money. So this resulted in the colonists boycotting British goods that had an extra tax on them. For example, when the Sugar Act came out, the colonists boycotted anything with sugar in it to avoid paying the tax. However, there was more to the colonists than just the boycotts. Many colonists believed that the British government had no right to tax the colonists. In Boston, the taxation was discussed a lot, and a local leader, Samuel Adams, argued that the British government could not charge the colonists without their permission. And so Adams helped found the Committees of Correspondence, which helped keep the colonies informed about the British taxes and ways to combat them. As you can see, none of these bullet points are bolded or underlined, so you don't need to copy anything down from this slide. However, you do need to acknowledge that the colonies are trying to find a way to unite against Britain. So we're starting to see a divide come between the colonists and Great Britain. So what's the result of all this? As a result of the Proclamation of 1763 and taxation without representation, a huge divide comes between the colonists and Great Britain. And this is the first major steps towards revolution. That's going to be it for Intro to New Material today, guys. You can move on to the Quizlet portion of today's class. Thanks for listening.